everyone, welcome to this episode of Life Unpotted today. We're happy you're here. And I think right now with what we're feeling, we kind of just want to have a conversation. We're not trying to be anything. We're never trying to be anything, but I think especially right now, we've done a podcast episode every day for the last 3 days. And, it definitely requires you to show up vulnerable. And I think we've had a reflection of realizing our natural state is resistance. Why is it so hard to podcast? Why do we ultimately find ourselves having to start over after we podcast and warm up and get prepared and basically unlock this natural state of being? Why is that the case? Why are we always in a state of resistance? Why? I think we have recognized just from doing this podcast every day, 3 days in a row, we recognize this. This is something that we've found, that we've learned, is that when we do the podcast, we enter a state of non-resistance, but it takes at least 20 minutes for us to get into that state. So we want to discuss that and just kind of bring awareness to the amount of resistance we can naturally be in.
I think it's so interesting when you have something in your life that reflects back to you what it means to be in flow state. You go play tennis, or after work, you go to the gym. I think we all have things that we do that kind of take us out of our mind and take us into the moment. I think it's really interesting, like having something that draws like a parallel to your normal life, of something that reflects to you, okay, this is what it feels like to not be thinking about yourself, to not be resisting the moment, to not be in your head, to actually be present. And I think a lot of the times, because like the only state we ever know is the state that we're experiencing in this moment, because you can only experience life in the moment that you're having, because you can't experience it out of the moment that you're having, right? So it's not until you experience something to contrast what you're experiencing to say, oh, I've been so stressed. I've been in such a resistant mood. And I think podcasting a lot of time makes me realize, oh, the past 4 hours of this day, the past 5 hours, I've been resisting everything. And it's just like, why do we do that? Why is our base state to constantly resist what's happening? Another one I'm really realizing, falling back into this pattern of trying to exert control over everything. And I've been having a lot of overwhelming thoughts of like, I have to call this person back, I have to text this person, I have to do this, I have to book this appointment, I have to order this for the apartment. Like my brain starts really, really spiraling about all the things that I need to do. And it gets to the point where I feel like I literally cannot relax because there's so many things I have to do. And I was journaling about this today, where I was like, I feel like I'm so caught up in this like overwhelmed cycle again of always thinking I have to do something. And I used to live in this for so much of my life. Like I remember vividly waking up in the morning, getting all these emails from my boss and being like crippling anxiety of like, how can I ever let go? How can I ever relax? And I kind of had the realization today when I was journaling, where I was just kind of like, that place of relaxation will never come, ever. We have to carve it out for ourselves.
Absolutely. I think that reflects how in your mind you've been. And same with me. I feel like I've been so in my mind, waking up with racing thoughts, straight anxiety of what's going on, what am I doing, feeling like I can't relax. And I think a way that I test myself to understand how relaxed are you right now generally is, how do I feel when I'm cleaning the kitchen or cooking? Because that is a place for me where if I'm feeling super stressed, I'm going to go to the kitchen and I'm going to deep clean. I'm going to feel really, really stressed about it. Or there's times where I'm going to do it and I'm going to feel relaxed while I do it. And I think it all comes back to, how much am I actually listening to these thoughts? How much am I allowing myself to get triggered? I think that it's really easy. The more we listen to our thoughts, to the more we're likely to believe what they are, and then to have them sort of affect our mood and how we're feeling, and to stop allowing us to relax. Because I want you to think of, not you, Sophie, I want you, the listener, to think of a time where you felt just really relaxed. Like, those days where you wake up, the sun looks different, the sky looks different, everything just feels good. And think about how that is compared to every day of your life. And think about, why aren't more of those days like that than they're not, right? I can tell right now Sophie has a lot to say and that she wants to say. And right now the little voice in my head is telling me like, she doesn't care what I have to say and she doesn't want me to keep talking, and I get mad at her.
Not true, keep talking.
And I get mad at her for wanting to talk. And like, that's just what I'm dealing with right now. I know it's not true, but I'm putting a voice to it so that you hear what that looks like and normalizes it, because these big emotions, like they don't just go away. Like we have to keep working through them. We have to just keep doing our normal tasks, our normal things, and be like, oh, you're here? Okay, I'm going to keep moving through these things. I think ultimately that's how we get to a place of relaxation, is noticing when we feel not good, triggered, this, X, Y, and Z. Not ignoring it, but being present with it and still operating through life normally, giving compassion to ourselves, but not letting this feeling win or take over and not allowing it to infiltrate our actions, you know?
Last night when I was making dinner, I found myself like really, okay, I was standing there about to make some stir fry with tofu. And I was like, okay, I have two choices right now. Before I start this whole process, it was about an hour process. I can either do this in a rush. I can do this in a rush out of kind of annoyance and frustration because it was 8:30 and in my mind I'm calculating, well, when I finish this at 9:30, how many hours am I going to have to relax?
That's a great one.
How many times in your life have you noticed your thoughts sitting there and being like, okay, calculating, if I do this, by this time I'll be able to relax then?
I think that's such an interesting one. I think we've brought this up in the podcast before of like, why is it that we feel like from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, we can't relax? And the small hours before the beginning of the day and the end of the day are the only hours we have to relax. And I've made this point before of like, what a sad way for us to live our lives, just looking to relax in the small moments and not finding relaxation in the things that we love doing. And I want to ask you, Sophie, if you are relaxed throughout your day, does that always mean you're happy? Or can you be relaxed and sad? Can you be relaxed and frustrated? Can you be relaxed and angry?
Okay, so I think it's a kind of a two-part answer, right? So if you're going to make dinner and you show up in the state that you are, and say you show up and you're just not really feeling that great, and your mind starts telling you that like, oh, like I should be feeling happier right now, or like, how am I going to make dinner if I don't feel good? And if I don't feel good, I need to relax later. I need 10 minutes. I need to unwind. Like so many times I've heard you say, Daisy, I've actually heard you say this the other day, or like, I want to unwind. I want time to unwind. And it's like, okay, why can't we unwind in the moment that we're doing that action that we're doing? And we think it's the thing we're doing. Maybe it's from being a kid and learning that your chores are cleaning, your chores are vacuuming. We have a mentally assigned, like mentally created connection to certain external situations to mean certain things. On one hand, like every single thing that we experience in our life is based on a mental association that our minds have created from some point in our life, right? There was some point that our brains learned that doing the dishes or cooking meals is not as valuable to our ability to be happy or our ability to relax as watching TV is and going to the beaches. There was some point in our life where our brain drew that connection, right? Because I don't think that's something that's like inherent to being a human, right? I don't think that is.
No, and I just thought of something, and this was me for years. This was me always feeling stressed and always wanting to find time to relax, but it being an hour before I go to sleep. And what I just realized that it is that there are going to be points in your day or in your life or in your week or month or whatever it is where, yeah, maybe you feel really fucking overwhelmed right now. And maybe you shouldn't be cooking dinner. Maybe you need 5 minutes to take a deep breath, and maybe you need some sort of compassion. Maybe you need some sort of break. Maybe you need to acknowledge to yourself that like you are out of control right now, and maybe going and projecting all of that into cooking or cleaning or preparing or working isn't the right thing to do. Maybe we think that we're not able to relax until we've cleaned or we've done these things. Maybe the reality is you need to take a break before you do those things. It's not a rush to finish these things so you can relax after. It's listening to yourself. And if you're hurting, if you're overwhelmed, if you're anxious, like take some time for yourself. You can relax and you can meditate. You can take a deep breath. Like you can lay down for 5 minutes. Like you can work through what's causing you so much turmoil. Right? So I think that's something that's really important to note, that maybe you need to take a moment before you do all these things. Maybe the answer isn't simply just, I'm going to relax. Maybe you need something, and you shouldn't have to be able to meet that need until after you've done something productive. You should be able to do that in this moment because you want to work with yourself and you want to give yourself what you need and you want to enjoy these things. So maybe it's filling up your cup. Maybe your cup's empty before you have to do all these things. So take a moment to fill up your cup.
But at the same time, I do kind of want to respond to that and saying, I understand what you're trying to say, but I think we can't always fill up our cup so fast. Like, are you trying to say...
No, I disagree. I think that we can take 5 minutes to ourselves. If, say, like our brain is spinning out of control and we think that we can't like take a moment to relax until after, what I'm saying is like reframing your brain to say, I can relax while I do this. But first, like maybe you need to acknowledge that, or maybe you need to take literally just 5 minutes.
Okay, I get what you mean now. I think, and this is kind of what I think I was trying to say earlier, of like pausing before what you're doing and kind of acknowledging the state that you're in. So
yes, that's exactly what my point is.
Okay, I got you now. So I think it's like, if you pause and you say, okay, right now, I just don't want to do this. And that's okay. I think that what we don't realize that like extreme feeling of not enjoying something just comes from us. It just comes from us resisting what we're feeling. So if we don't want to make dinner and we sit there and for that hour we're thinking about the fact that we don't want to be making dinner, it's going to be an awful experience. But if you, before you start making dinner, you say, okay, this is how I feel right now, and that's okay. I'm going to honor that. I'm going to show up as I am, and I'm not going to resist that. Because guess what? And this is, I think, the answer to literally so many of the questions we pose in life. Why do I feel so uncomfortable? Why do I not feel good during doing this? Why can I only relax at the end of the day for those 5 minutes? It's because when we acknowledge how we're feeling and we just say it to ourselves or to our partner or to whoever it is, it's like all of a sudden we find permission again to come back to the moment. And it's like the other day something was bothering me and I just didn't even understand it. And Daisy like was like, oh, is it because of that? And immediately I felt a sense of relief.
Well, I think what you mentioned at the beginning of the episode is there are things that people routinely do like after work to help them relax or help them unwind. And I think that can be a way. A lot of times like that's working out, doing something with your body, playing a sport, going somewhere. I think that getting in touch with your body, I think that's just one way to do it. But I think that specifically, I think it can help you kind of get out of your mind. I think that's kind of the point. I don't think that maybe this habit of, oh, I finished work, my laptop is shut, I'm going to go make dinner. I'm not going to take any space in between. Maybe that started from the work from home trend that we've had the last few years. Maybe this trend of our days blurring stopped us from creating separation between the things we're going to do and taking a break, because that's important to be able to reflect, create space for yourself and be like, where am I at right now? And learning to enjoy things, because it's important to know where we're at. Because if we don't take a minute, understand where we're at, whether that it's like you said, playing tennis, or whether that's talking to the neighbor, whether that's even just like for you, like going in and like doing your sheets. I don't know. It can be literally anything, but I think having intentional space in between things that we do can really help us, especially during the weekday when we're busy and it feels go, go, go. I think it's so easy to get caught up into a certain mood that we're feeling. And oftentimes, I think interacting with others or having some sort of activity can help us get out of that. And I think that's really important, because if we don't have that, especially in times that are difficult, I imagine we can find ourselves stuck in a certain mindset continuously.
Yeah. I want to go deeper on this, because I have really found myself in this place this past few days, and it's really brought me back to a place I used to live in this state. Like 25 years old, working at the law firm for the past all those years. And I used to always live in this state of just feeling like I could never catch a breath. I mean, feeling like I was constantly overwhelmed. And it was this mental narrative that I created about when I could be happy, about when I could relax. It's so easy when we scratch this at this level of like, okay, when you go meet up with your friends, when you go play basketball, when you go to the gym, yes, these are all things that facilitate you getting out of your head. But ultimately, you could get out of your head right now, in this moment. And it's really hard to do that because we're constantly thinking. So what I'm trying to say is like, when we understand that we are the only ones creating a reality to be what they are. So if you feel miserable making dinner, that's on you. If you feel miserable from 9 a.m. until 9:30 until you get home and open up that beer, open up that glass of wine or whatever you hit at Netflix, that's on you, right? That's your decision that I'm not going to be able to relax until these events happen. So I think this is a really important topic because for most people who have such busy lives and cannot have a minute to breathe during the day. They're waking up, they have family obligations, they have their parents live at their house, they have a sick relative, they have this, they have that. Like, life is hard. Life comes with a lot of responsibilities. And I think that when we stop trying to change the external world, when we stop trying to say, I need my day to look different, I need to not podcast 3 days in a row, because if I do, that's stressful. I need to not have all these plans this week, or I need to not have this job, or I need to not be so busy. I need more time after work. While I do think a lot of these things are true, like I do think we do need time to decompress, we have to remember that it is your mind, your mental narrative that is ultimately dictating your ability to enjoy the moment that you're in. Does that resonate with you, Daisy?
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's making me think of how you look at different people and you're like, well, how does that person have so many hours in their day? And I feel like I have no hours in my day. I feel like I wake up and before I know it, it's time to go to bed. And I think time slows down when you're relaxed, because when you're relaxed, you're getting the most out of every second. You're engaged, and you know where you're not? You're not stuck in your mind. And I think being stuck in our mind is the biggest time suck. It's what makes our days feel really short. It's what makes them feel overwhelming and unenjoyable, because we are just clinging on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And we're never actually enjoying in the moment. And I just realized, like, there are not all the same hours in the day for people. And what I mean by that is I think your mentality and your mindset really depict that, right? Like, think of a day where you were not feeling good. You were tired. You were feeling heavy emotions. It was just felt like a difficult day for you. And then compare that to a Saturday where you wake up, you feel really light, you're feeling really excited. Maybe it's a fresh fall day and you have plans to go do things with your friends or loved ones. And think about how these days play out differently, and think about how you could take that mentality of that nice Saturday fall day and how you could bring that to the day where you feel your absolute worst. And I would be curious to hear what people had to say about that. Like, how do you make your worst days better? How do you make the days that are the hardest a little bit better? Is it possible to turn those days around if we can relax into and accept that they're feeling like difficult days?
Well, like, this is a classic point of the episode where my mind starts to go, oh, right, I won't live forever. Oh, right, this is temporary. Like, this experience, like, I was not alive before 30 years ago. I wasn't here. Where was I? I don't know. I won't be here in 100 years, right? So how do we make our quote unquote worst days into our best days? It's recognizing that there are no worst days. We're just here. And oh my God, like, we constantly miss the point. We constantly miss the point.
I think that I'm smiling right now because we are the ones who, for the most part, create our own suffering. And I've been creating my own suffering the last few days. And I'm just recognizing that, oh my God, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, you can treat today like the best day of your life, because it is all up to you and how willing you are to allow yourself to do that.
Because it is the only day of your life. Like, this is when we realize we really, really take life for granted. Like, you don't know when your time's going to end. And I'm not saying that out of a place of fear. I'm saying that out of a place of reality. Like,
but why is it that hearing that, it just makes me feel relaxed? Because let me ask you a question. I think there is some sort of connection between relaxation and connection. I think the more likely we are to be relaxed, the more likely we are to be authentic, to be real, to be open, and to tell someone how we're feeling if they ask, and give them the space and the opportunity to answer how they're feeling. And I think the more we are anxious and closed off and not relaxed, we are in our heads and we're less likely to connect with people. And I think there is just a connection between relaxation and connection. And I think that's how we fill our days, right? It's how we make them feel longer, it's how we make them feel more exciting, is by truly connecting with others. And that goes back to my point earlier of like, you don't have to be happy to be relaxed. You can feel sad and be relaxed. And sometimes that's healing and nurturing to be in that kind of state.
Yeah, and to answer what you were saying earlier is like, if you just acknowledge how you're feeling right now without trying to change it, if you just say, okay, I feel this way. Okay, proceed. Like, okay, you can feel that way. Like, okay, feel it. You don't have to change it. So much of our suffering, if not all of our suffering, comes from trying to change what we're experiencing. Like, Michael Singer was so funny in his podcast. He was like, you get dropped down onto earth. You have one job. Watch life unfold. That's it. Just watch it. Just sit there and watch your life unfold. Don't control it. Don't try to change it. Like, just watch it. And he articulates it so well because he laughs at how ridiculous we all are, like spinning in circles on this life. Like, but we have to understand that's our mind. Like, this is where when you really get kind of existential and deep and you're like, okay, wait, right. Like, how did I get here? What was before me? Our brain goes back so many years to no one even knows where it comes from, like the ancestral DNA or fight or flight. And not only that, but like you see what's going on in the world right now. Like you see these horrible, horrible, horrible things happening. And it's like, oh, but I'm over here in America, like feeling stressed because there's one piece of bread left and I forgot to go get peanut butter at the grocery store. Like what? This is where I think it's a matter of recognizing our own delusion and recognizing that like we have to have discipline in changing our mindset. And we have to recognize that there will come a point in our lives, maybe some people will never realize this, but all you would have ever wanted was today. All you would have ever wanted was what you're doing right now. You would have been dying to take that day where you're sitting on the couch feeling like shit. Because at least you were here.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing to say because there is the example of, say you wake up and you feel sick. And there's no denying that your throat hurts and you have a headache and you feel fatigued. But there is a difference in what you tell yourself. You can make yourself feel 10 times more sick. And you can do that. I think a lot of people do that. I've done that in the past where I really lean into the identity that I'm sick right now. I don't feel good, right? And I think that can be true of a lot of things. And I think the example you just gave right now of like when you aren't feeling your best and you aren't feeling good and you feel like it's the end of the world, take a look at that from your deathbed. Look at that from your deathbed, right? How would you shift your mindset if your last moments were in a state of like that? Could you find enjoyment in it? Could you find contentment? Could you find peace? Could you find love? So I think that is to say that taking a pause when we really don't feel good and saying how much of this is my mental chatter contributing to this, how much of it is. And I think it's a matter of recognizing that you don't have to suffer more than what is already being dealt to you. You don't have to make it worse on yourself.
And I think this is kind of where we do like a little internal audit of all the agreements we've made with ourselves. And it's like you open up your book of agreements. Okay, what do I mean by that? I mean, we all have mental agreements we've made with our mind about what things in life will make us feel good and the things that won't. So if you're somebody who absolutely hates commuting, or you're somebody who gets so mad about traffic, or you hate going to work, or you hate doing the dishes, or you hate having conversations with your partner, or you just hate everything, right? Those are agreements that you're laughing.
I think that was a funny example of you hate having conversations with your partner.
I don't know. Some people just like resist everything to them as a drag, right? And it's like, okay, so if you open up the book, right, of Sophie's agreements, and I've done this by really going deep and asking, okay, why do I think that about that? When did I learn that I can't be happy when I spend an hour after work making dinner? Why is that what I believe? And in that, when we assess these mental agreements that we made of why am I somebody who gets mad when I'm in traffic? When did I agree to be that way? This is when we really realize that we're living on autopilot based on these subconscious agreements that we've made at some point in our life. Maybe you were 15 years old and you're really pissed off that one day something happened. And from there, you've carried it and carried it and carried it your whole life. And I think this journey is exactly that. It's about checking these agreements we've made with ourselves our entire life and unlearning them. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's what I'm doing, what we're both doing. And I think a lot of people listening to this podcast are trying to do is taking inventory of all that mental chatter shit up there, all these stupid ass agreements that we have to no fault on our own. We are like a sponge and we internalize everything, and asking ourselves and really understanding, what are these agreements I've made? Okay, understood them. Okay, I'm letting go. I'm no longer going to continue to wire that literal synapse in my brain. By agreeing with that agreement, you are literally, on a scientific level, you are continuing to wire that neural pathway in your brain. So again, how do you change your life? You change your thoughts. You stop going through and agreeing with those same agreements time after time again. So next time you're driving, you say, I want to react so badly, but I'm not going to do it. And then bam, watch your life change.
Okay. All right, Joe. Been a minute since he's had a sighting.
We got to bring Joe up in the pod.
Yeah, we do. So I think this is an interesting point to do like an internal reflection and to show an example of exactly what you're talking about, Sophie. So say one of my agreements is when people are passionately speaking to me or in front of me about something, it means that X, Y, and Z about me. It makes me feel like I just don't feel good about it. It makes me feel hurt and it makes me want to talk, and I don't know what it is. That's an agreement that I have somewhere along my life I've made. And something, well, I think it means that I have to rush to say something, or else people are going to think I have nothing to say. If someone else is saying so much, like I have to rush to say something. And I think this was just happening as Sophie was talking about this and was giving a great example. But I did remember something that Michael Singer once said. And what he said was, if you're in a conversation where someone says something to you and you want to reply and be like, no, you're an idiot, it's this. Don't reply at all. Just say, okay. And I think it kind of goes to the whole idea of what Sophie just said. If you're trying to rewire an agreement with yourself, don't react to the past agreements you've made with yourself. Just don't respond to it. And in that instance, I was like, I'm not going to even let her know that I want to talk. I'm just going to wait until she's done, and then I'll start talking. And I think that's how we rewire these things that maybe bring us pain or bring us frustration into things that in the future we can laugh at that once brought us pain, because we've distanced ourselves so much from the seriousness and the pain of it that we can look back on it and be like, well, that's silly. Why'd I ever get worked up about that? If I'm about to die, why'd I get worked up about X, Y, and Z agreement? Like, why can't I just be happy and laugh at these things that aren't so serious?
And with a level of compassion, right? Understanding like...
But no, I'm not saying that
no, I don't think
it's
you
not
are.
Discompassionate, uncompassionate. It's, yeah. No, I definitely mean to have this with compassion.
Yeah, I think also just remembering like a lot of the time something did happen that resulted in those agreements, right? Like life is hard. Life is difficult to go through, especially as we're growing up at such young, malleable years. So as you're unlearning these agreements, remember that a lot of the times when you made these agreements, you were probably hurt and you probably didn't have the emotional toolbox to process those feelings in the way you do now, to say, oh, wait, that doesn't mean anything wrong about me. It doesn't mean anything about who I am and my capabilities. Because another episode we should do is defense mechanisms. That was a huge one for me. Like our desire to need to defend ourselves constantly and like react. That's a good one. It's for me specifically. But Daisy's like, yes, it is. You are defensive. I've worked on that a lot.
I have a question about being relaxed. Like, isn't to learn to be relaxed at all times the ultimate goal? Isn't it the people who are the most relaxed aren't those the ones that we look to for guidance and leadership the most? Are the ones that don't give way to their minds in times of fear? I think there is something to be sought out from people who are relaxed and don't take things so seriously, because ultimately there's something there that is contagious when people are relaxed. So I'm curious, Soph, to just hear from you on what do you think it means to be relaxed? And was it something that you have memories of like being a kid or being younger or being like a young adult and seeing people who relax, where you would become aware of people who were relaxed, and would you look at them differently maybe? I'm just curious if anything comes to mind.
I'm not so sure if it's as much of other people in my life who were relaxed. I think I used to like admire a lot of people who felt carefree, like they were really open. But I think my whole life, like I've battled with not being relaxed. Like I have so many memories of going on family vacations growing up and just feeling so anxious at the beach. Like I used to hate going to the beach, which is so funny. And I'm like, now that I think about why do I hate going to the beach, right? Because you have to sit with your thoughts. And I think that was something that was really, really hard for me to do throughout a lot of my life. So I think what I'm realizing right now in life is that being relaxed, I think the epitome of relaxation is trusting that life is just unfolding as it is.
That's exciting. That's a good feeling to have.
So why don't we have it?
Because we choose not to.
It's like, okay, maybe we should do podcasts 4 times a week because there's always insights at the end. Like my brain right now is like, can you just let go?
Well, I think
I have let go through this episode.
I mean, I'm struggling to let go. I think I have to an extent.
Like let go, like let it go. Like that's the thing. It's like, what are you grasping to? Like you're gonna be safe. Everything's gonna be okay.
Well, I think it's interesting because I'll think that I let go, and then something will be said, and it like all of that anger comes up again. So I think it's interesting.
Then you just relax back into the anger. It's a continuous process.
It's a continuous process.
Because think about when you meditate, right? You're sitting there, you're meditating. Thought, okay, come back to the moment. Thought, come back to the moment. So that's what life becomes.
So meditating. So in, I think some ways, podcasting is meditative for us because it's forcing us to work through our thoughts and to play ping pong with them and to not stop the flow of the conversation, because the key component of this podcast conversation is the flow that we're having. And you know what likes to ruin flow? Your thoughts. And that is exactly what this podcast is. It is a long meditation. It is a 45 to 50 minute meditation where we don't let our thoughts interrupt us. Like when I see things and I see you look away, or I see whatever's happening, it's like, don't let that ruin your flow. That has been a lesson.
What an interesting way to put it. It's like a verbal meditation. Imagine if we did this for like 3 hours. How much would come up inside of you that you can't access when you're thinking so much?
So it has me thinking of our friends at Dualistic Community where they do like multiple hour live streams every single day. So I imagine that's some sort of practice. It's a practice of non-resistance to be continuously doing these things and having a conversation like this. Like it is so impactful on me. Like I know sure as hell I'm going to have a great day, much better than the day I was having prior to recording this. I'm going to have a much better day after. I'm out of my head. Anything can be enjoyable after this. Like that's just where I'm at right now. Isn't that interesting? How that is possible.
So maybe it really is a reminder of the importance of doing uncomfortable things in life, because when we do uncomfortable things, because I feel like we're constantly going back to the original question, like what are we resisting? Why are we not relaxing? I think because we're like really scared of discomfort and we're always seeking.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
So if when you mentioned the importance of doing uncomfortable things, made me think, like maybe we are people who are like on a spiritual journey, whatever that means, of recognizing there's more than us. But I feel like there is such a power to just doing uncomfortable things. It can have nothing to do with spirituality. It can have nothing to do with mindfulness, and it have nothing to do with wellness. Like yeah, there is a branch of that that focuses on that, but it has me thinking back to how much I resisted ever working at any of the jobs I worked at. There was always so much internal resistance. And clearly that was like all me. All of that was me. But it just has me thinking, when someone offers you an opportunity that, whether it's like at work or whether it's like in your community, whatever it is, if it's something that you think you can't handle or something that you immediately are like, oh, like, no, I don't want to do that. You don't know that. And maybe it's exactly what you need. I mean, I think going back to Michael Singer, someone else we want to have on this podcast, is in the surrender experiment. It's like he doesn't make the decisions. He lets life make the decisions for him. And he just responds to them by saying, all right, let's figure this out. I think that can sometimes be a hard thing to comprehend. But I think the core message is that you can't control your life. All you can control is how you respond to things. And if you respond to things with acceptance and not resistance, some things that may have been a nightmare or may have been something you didn't want may be actually what you needed exactly, right? So I think it's learning to relax into any sort of discomfort, because you never know, that might bring you exactly to where you need to be.
I think it's a good way to close out the episode. I'm having so many insights right now, and I think if my takeaway is anything from this conversation, it's that life is a continuous process of letting go. Either you're letting go or you're resisting. We have two options. And how do you let go? You just move forward. You just keep going without letting that mental chatter tell you otherwise. And if you keep going, there's nowhere, well, the reality of it is there's also nowhere to get. Like, life will continuously present you with obstacles, and it's not about removing the obstacles, but recognizing that you can handle no matter what comes your way. So I think if we always have that inner knowing and that trusting of that, no matter what unfolds, I will handle it. I am handling it. And that's just your job in life. Just watch it unfold, and watch your ability to handle it
also unfold. I just want to say I am proud of us for just looking at it. I have to leave for nannying in like 20 minutes. And I'm just proud of us for looking at the way we felt earlier, having podcasted like every day this week and feeling like we didn't want to do this. And here we are, finishing it, closing out, having done a lot of work, feeling a lot better, putting quality content into whoever decides to listen to this next Tuesday. And it has me feeling good. I didn't want a podcast. I didn't want to do this, but I knew that it was important to do so that I can get ahead of things, so that I can continue growing the podcast, growing the community, going deeper, creating even more quality content for you all. So I'm just proud of us for pushing through, feeling a lot better, leaving the listener feeling with a good feeling, and just having pushed through regardless of what we thought we wanted.
I'm proud too, man. High five up in here. I think that's exactly it. You don't know what's best for you.
No.
You never do.
You don't.
Wow.
And I think doing something you don't want to do within reason that's safe can really teach you a lesson to get out of your head. And if you take anything from today's episode, I hope you take that maybe if you aren't feeling great, if someone gives you an opportunity to do something, if you don't want to go visit a friend, if you don't want to go work on a project, just maybe consider doing it. Maybe it will give you what you're looking for and help you get out of your head and help you feel more appreciative of this life that you have right now while you are healthy and happy and have opportunities ahead of you. And if you're alive, then you do have opportunities ahead of you. So we're so grateful to have listeners like all of you who engage with us, who write us in, who share your thoughts and opinions and questions with us. And I just feel really excited for this community we're building and the impact that we continue to have, the impact you continue to have on us. It just feels like an exciting time for Life Unpotted.
It sure does. And as always, get ready for this Thursday's community series. We have some good questions ready to discuss. So thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you so much for listening to Life Unpotted. We really appreciate your support. We really appreciate your involvement in the community. As always, share our podcast on Instagram. Please rate, review, subscribe. You know the drill. Support us, because all we want to do is continue to give you meaningful, deep thought-provoking content, and your support makes all the difference. So we'll see you guys on Thursday at the next community series. And until that, we'll hope you guys have a good week.